Eagerly, I would inhale the High Princess's farts, with lips pressed firmly against the taut, puckered ring of muscle constituting her divine asshole. I gratefully suck in every last gulp of her warm, sweet effluvia, like it was my last breath, for I should be so lucky to taste her with my dying gasp. I can almost imagine how she'd push fervently whilst uttering soft, tantalizing little grunts as she wiggled about, straining to free the last of the delicate, delicious farts from the depths concealed between her immaculate white ass cheeks. Further into the carpet she'd grind my head. My nose would most likely break, but I would not cry out, for in another place I would already be. A beautiful place. Suffocation in that pillowy, marshmallow expanse would be a gift to be treasured. For as my vision dimmed and everything grew quiet at last, I'd know what it was like to taste heaven itself. My whole world would flit gently away, washing out slowly with the scent of freshly baked bread. There is no other greater inspiration than this. Adrift in that ocean vast, I cared no more if there was tomorrow waiting. Waves of pearlescent white encompassed me utterly, rolling, undulating, rippling ever outward towards the horizon, with every heaven-sent gust which found purchase between my lips. Wind did break again, sudden, harsh, and hot. I took a lungeful tremendous, filling me up until I thought I would burst. Spicy, thick. It saturated my tongue and coated my mouth, hanging there in the back of my throat, clinging fast to it, as if taunting me to remember my life before this. But as much as my chest heaved and my eyes watered, I refused to hope for things to be the same again, and I would not wish for a better today. Since I'd lost myself in the sea unending, I'd found that I could be nowhere else. Anonymous, my sweet Anonymous, a voice, soft, soothing, and honey-drenched, called out to me. Quiet at first, but soon my head began to clear and I could focus once more. Louder it rang in my ears. Anonymous, the siren called out again, this time a melodic rhythm lading her words. Wings spread wide above me, purest white and magnificent. The pale, shimmering tide before me grew dim as they approached and enveloped me with their warmth. I became aware of the room around me as my lips last parted from between the cheeks of her soft, perfect ass. My, but it was, wasn't it? She giggled, her laugh so soft, tender, and sweet. She lowered her voice to a mere whisper and said, as she nibbled in my ear, "That one was much bigger, and you have done well, but our session is not yet complete." I did not hesitate. "I'm yours, Highness." From the corner of my field of vision, I saw the tip of her tongue flick out and run across her teeth. The anticipation of what was to come writ large across her beautiful, pale face. "Well then, if you feel prepared." She paused for a mere moment as her stomach began to gurgle. "Anonymous." Pain racked in the lines forming her face as her expression soured. It was made plain that she needed me so desperately. I turned to her. Upon my shoulders the burden shall fall again. I slid back down as she parted her thighs, letting one hind leg drape across me as the other rested on the bed. I learned in recent sessions that she likes for her clitoris to be carefully kneaded while I do this for her. So I set to work with one hand rubbing her voluptuous, already moist marehood, while I grasped one cheek of her ass firmly with the other. I lifted one side of that precious flank, spreading her open so as to have better access to that perfect little puckered jewel which resided within, and soon my eager mouth met her clenching, desirous hold directly. I poked my tongue through the tight wall of muscle only barely, but the response was almost immediate. Just barely a squeak in that first moment, but quickly did the floodgates swing wide, and my body was once more a vessel for her outlet. The deluge of precious farts ripping free from her guts came with force. The relief could not be heard in her voice, The relief could be heard in her voice, immense as she moaned. I knew that this was but one of many, but the taste, however rank, did wonders for my own arousal. As I ate her wretched asswind, suckling down every particle of her, savoring it, a fire sparked in my own loins. Nothing can then be done to diminish the stiffness of my dick. Her attention was diverted as my rock-hard penis stabbed into her leg, over and over as I ate her ass out with gusto. Graciously, she leaned in and began to lick my throbbing erection, at last sensing that I needed her just as much as she needed me. The feeling was incomparable. We lay there on our sides, my face buried between those supple cheeks so white, sucking the fiery expulsions from her guts. She planted her head between my thighs, bobbing fervently as she swallowed every inch of my cock down to my full, heavy balls. Again and again, like some strange, oddly sweet perversion of Ouroboros, there was no beginning to us, and no longer an end. But infinite could not describe the heights of our pleasure as we writhed against each other, our sweat mixing as it poured from us in rivulets wide. Taking in the taste of each other at the height of our lust, it was something more than a mere act of sexual gratification. Her tummy rumbled once more, fierce. I felt her sphincter dilate in anticipation. I knew then that I'd arrived at my final moments as well. As the torrent of hot, sweet-tasting gas began to fill my cheeks, I struggled in earnest to gulp it all down, but swallow it I did, and over the edge it drove me. She took the length of my cock into her mouth entirely and sucked for all she was worth, twisting her neck back and forth in a corkscrew motion. Lips and snout grinding against my crotch, my balls throbbed and my stomach clenched as thick, hot ropes of salty, sticky seed flooded into her throat with abandon. The last of her warm, delicious farts left her bowels at last. I kept my lips tightly against her, flickering my tongue out gently, slowly, eating her ass as she purred in ecstasy. I'd stopped coming already, the last of my seed drained from my exhausted testicles, but she stayed down on my dick, giving it soft, delicate strokes with her tongue as she continued to push her face down between my legs until I'd gone completely limp. Only once I'd grown too tired to continue and let my lips fall free from her butt did she finally release my member from her mouth, letting it flop down flaccidly against my leg. Gingerly, she climbed up around behind me, taking care not to hurt me with her hooves, and wrapped her forelegs around my chest. She pulled me towards her, spooning me, wings wrapping tightly around me. She'd kissed up and down my neck sweetly, playfully nibbling my skin to elicit quiet little moans from me. I love the taste of you, Anonymous. I could lay my head to rest every night with the musk of you on my tongue, I think. I hope you found my taste pleasing as well, she whispered. I could feel her chest flushing with heat as her heart increased its tempo. I'm honored, Princess, and yes, your taste was most pleasing, as was the immense pleasure you granted me. I grinned. I'd not felt flutters in my stomach like this in a long time. You should get dressed, she said, her voice a little higher than usual. I could tell she was still smiling wide. I climbed slowly off the bed, still drunk from the pleasure she had bestowed upon me in more ways than one, and slowly I pulled on my trousers and threw on my tunic. May I ask you something, Anonymous? She smiled deeply as she looked away slightly, cheeks flushed with a rosy hue. I was still buttoning my tunic, but I knelt before her, slowly, deeply. Anything, Your Majesty. Why do you faith me with your service, your unwavering loyalty? For there is no other who would do this for me out of genuine desire. Hundreds of centuries have come and gone since I've known fulfillment like this. Our nights together are a satisfaction for which I've deeply yearned, but why? I was silent for a moment. Carefully I chose my words. Then I looked up and met her eyes, with a warm smile that had no trouble reaching my eyes. I'd never spoken with such sincerity. When serving you, fulfilling your heart's desires, I've never felt more at peace. Since I've known you, I've known serenity. Thank you for that, Highness. Her expression was passive, unreadable. And she said nothing, but the same smile I'd given her. It must have been infectious, for only moments later it consumed her lips and spread up to her eyes as well. I bowed my head once more, then got to my feet and left. But as I crossed the threshold, and before the double doors to her chamber swung shut all the way, I could feel the air begin to chill. I rounded the corner, only to be stopped short by Princess Luna. "Well, hello there, Anonymous. That was quite the soiree you had with my sister, was it not?" Your Highness!" I breathed as I dropped to one knee before her. She narrowed her eyes. "I wanted to know what the two of you were doing, so I listened. And what I heard was, well, it was quite something." No games with this one, I decided. Best to ask outright. "What is it you desire of me, Highness?" She did not waste any time. "You. I desire you. I want what you gave to my sister," she said, voice getting a little more intent. "And more. Much more." "Highness?" "Tomorrow night, Anonymous. My chambers," she said as she crept closer to me and lapped out her long tongue, running it enticingly along my cheek. "Should you decide not to appear," she said, eyes meeting mine, wide, piercing, and cold as she swung her head right around in front of mine, "the consequences do not bear contemplation." I nodded slowly, shivering as my skin chilled. Satisfied, she withdrew. She began to walk away. Her horn grew bright as an aura of violet and deep blue encompassed her. Those feelings of calm, the blanketing serenity, I had spoken my last words to Celestia. It had all drained away from me. I blinked and she was gone. And there again, I was alone. The big empty castle corridor was the only thing before me, muted light from the lamps, lighting the walls, flickering, subtle, subdued. I had so much to think about then. The end.